welcome to yet another It's a Mystery. Yes, we're here once again to baffle and astound you.
Gail and I have been once again tracking down some bizarre tales that had us well and truly puzzled.
And in the It's a Mystery studios we'll attempt to solve some more. Amongst today's collection of mysteries are these strange reports.
Is it possible that a fallen tree could have a life of its own?
Do you believe in curses? We reveal the dark secrets that lie deep inside this box.
And could this woman have walked into a room that had disappeared over 25 years before?
Here's a mystery that seems totally unbelievable, but see if you can work out what's going on. It may not be as mysterious as it seems.
It was a day that nobody in the village of East Dean would ever forget. A huge storm had ripped across the country overnight and the howling winds had toppled trees like dominoes. Jim Daniels and his colleagues had set out to chop up and clear away a tree that had fallen in the churchyard.
You ever seen anything like it?
The noise of the storm that shook me. I thought a window's going to cave in.
Our garden shed was blown away and it smashed to pieces in the street.
The tree had been ripped clean out of the ground by the massive storm, leaving a huge ball of roots at one end, whilst the branches and trunk completely blocked the path to the main church door.
Right, lads. So you get the branches off this then?
I don't think this will take long.
Yeah, let's get on with it.
The men carefully cut away the branches and tidied them into a pile. Towards the end of the day, they packed up their tools and set off home.
Last one, guys.
Right, well done. OK, lads, let's call it a day. We'll come back tomorrow and clear up.
They planned to wake early and finish clearing up the churchyard the next day. As darkness fell, the churchyard came alive with nighttime noises. Animals could be heard scurrying through the undergrowth, and mysterious creaking sounds filled the air. Something strange was beginning to occur. The next day, the workmen returned to finish off the job.
And we should be able to cut the trunk up into bits and then clear away. Have you got the saws?
We've left them in the van. And the ropes as well. We better go and fetch them.
Jim rounded the corner to the churchyard. All of a sudden, he froze in his tracks, trying desperately to make sense of the sight that met his eyes.
I don't believe it. I simply don't believe it. Lads! Lads, come here quickly!
The other workers dropped their tools and ran to the scene.
That's incredible. What on earth's going on?
The men were shocked, stunned, for there in the middle of the churchyard was the tree. But rather than lying there on the ground waiting to be chopped up, it was standing bolt upright just as it had been before the storm.
Freaky stuff. So what do you think could have happened? A tree that stands up all by itself? Surely that's impossible.
Maybe it was propped up as a practical joke, or could it be the work of mischievous elves?
Well, this is actually a true report. In 1987, there was a huge storm that swept the country. Howling winds had toppled trees like dominoes, and the next day many fallen trees had to be cleared.
But OK, what about our tree? Well, we've done some research and it looks like the workmen themselves may have caused the tree to stand upright by accident. You see, when the tree had fallen in the storm, its roots may not have been snapped off completely. And when the workmen chopped the branches off the fallen tree, it was no longer top heavy and had sprung back to its upright position.
It's a little bit like this. This is the tree that the workmen cut the branches off like this. Here we go. So the weight of the roots here caused it to stand up all by itself.
Looks like we've got to the root of a very tall story. it's a mystery, what's in this box?
Well, if it's a mystery, let's find out. Come on.
No, don't do that. You can't do that. It's jinxed. Don't touch it or there'll be trouble.
What do you mean? Don't be silly.
Yeah, don't be ridiculous,
No,
Jinx.
I am telling you, this box is cursed, and if you open it, you could be unleashing all sorts of dark forces.
There is no such thing as jinxes and curses. I'm going to take a look. Stand aside.
Hang on a sec, mate. I'm not too sure, you know. Perhaps there is some truth in it. In fact, the real mystery is, do jinxes or curses really exist? Can they really work?
Well, let's take a look at one of the most famous cases, the Curse of Tutankhamun. When the young pharaoh Tutankhamun died about 3,000 years ago, he was laid to rest in a magnificent tomb located in the Valley of the Kings in Egypt. His priests were said to have laid a curse that dire punishment would fall to any intruder that entered the tomb.
However, over 70 years ago, in 1922, an archaeologist called Howard Carter and his team finally discovered the entrance to the tomb of Tutankhamun.
So, okay, what about the curse?
Well, the first person to break through the sacred tomb was a man named Lord Carnarvon. He saw all the wonders of the ancient burial site, but within 6 months of entering the tomb, Lord Carnarvon was dead.
The legend of the curse grew as an archaeologist called Arthur Mace also fell ill and died before the tomb had been cleared.
Another visitor to the ancient site was George J. Gould, who also died of pneumonia resulting from a cold caught in the tomb.
In fact, within 10 years of the opening of the tomb, it was claimed that a total of 20 people who had been involved had died, some of natural causes, some of unnatural causes.
Ooh, spooky. So, had the pharaoh's curse befallen them? Could it possibly be true? Or was it all coincidence? What do you think? Well, you know, there are two sides to every story. Experts question the very existence of King Tutankhamun's curse.
Now, one theory put forward by scientists is that Lord Carnarvon and Arthur Mace were fatally weakened by radiation, which had built up inside the mummy of the king over more than 3,000 years.
However, another theory more recently put forward by scientists suggests that the curse was all down to some kind of killer bug in the tomb. The scientists think that these deadly bugs were trapped inside the tomb, growing in strength until they unleashed their force on Lord Carnarvon, the first one to enter the burial chamber.
None of this proves beyond doubt that Lord Carnarvon or any of the team were or were not affected by the curse.
Well, you know, I've decided that all this curse nonsense is a bit far-fetched. I reckon that if you don't believe in curses or jinxes, then they can't affect you.
Yeah, me too. So, Sweet Pea, what was inside the box?
Well, my little mushroom, open it and you'll find out, but
Okay.
you won't like it.
Why not?
You just won't like it.
Don't be daft. Come on, I'm going to open it anyway.
Go on.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
You're
here we
really
go.
not going to like it?
Go ahead.
Oh, you're not
Open
gonna
it
like
up, Neil.
That's it for it. There's nothing in it.
Told you you wouldn't like it.
Do you believe that people can see back in time? Well, I'm not sure myself, but Gail's got a very strange tale for you. It's a mystery what Mrs Featherstone saw one day when she was out shopping.
Mrs Featherstone was a pensioner who lived with her husband in Royal Tunbridge Wells in Kent. One summer's day, a few years ago, they popped into town as usual. Once there, they split up and arranged to meet later on.
We split up here and meet in half an hour.
Can we make it an hour? I've got a lot to do and I must get some shortbread.
Right. See you at the bandstand.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
After making her regular purchases, Mrs Featherstone tried several shops for a tin of shortcake. Unsuccessful in her search, she went into a small store that she'd never been in before. Fortunately, there was no shortcake. However, whilst she was looking around the store, she noticed an opening in a wall. Curiosity got the better of her, and she went to investigate. It was the entrance to a rather grand wood-panelled room. It was in stark contrast to the white fittings and shelves of the rest of the store. Mrs Featherstone noticed that there were no windows in the room and people were sitting there drinking coffee and chatting. She thought it odd that she'd not heard of the coffee shop before, and what was even stranger was that she could not smell any coffee. What was stranger still was that the people were wearing old-fashioned clothes. So, intrigued by it all, she made a mental note of it for future visits and went off to continue looking for her shortbread.
How bizarre! A woman sees a wooden-panelled coffee room that she'd never come across before, and the people in it were all in old-fashioned clothes. Well, the plot starts to thicken.
A week later, she was in town again, so she decided to visit the coffee shop that she discovered. But when she got inside, Mrs Featherstone was stunned to discover that where the entrance to the coffee shop had been, there was now a white wall and pictures. She peered at it, but on close inspection, there was definitely no entrance to be seen. The room she had seen had disappeared.
So hang on, what's going on? Had Mrs Featherstone made a mistake? Or could she somehow have slipped backwards in time to a period when a wooden-panelled coffee room had existed? Is there any logical explanation?
I've been doing some of my own research into this mystery. And it turns out that up until several years ago, a building belonging to the Tunbridge Wells Constitutional Club stood right next door to the shop that Mrs Featherstone had been in. Now, inside that club, over 50 years ago during World War II, there was in fact a coffee room with wooden panelled walls. Now, I've managed to track down some people that knew about the coffee club.
The old Constitutional Club indeed did have a refreshment room, but it all closed when the club moved in about 1960.
Some of our members do remember that there was a mahogany panelled refreshment room for teas and coffees in our old building, which stood right next door to a food shop.
So confirmation that over 50 years ago there had indeed been a mahogany panelled coffee room in the building next door to the shop. It would have been in exactly the correct position to match Mrs Featherstone's description.
Amazing! A coffee room used to be in the exact spot where Mrs Featherstone had spied it through the gap in the wall. But the interesting thing is, it had closed down many years before. So is it possible that Mrs Featherstone somehow had stepped back in time? Or maybe she had just conjured up a daydream of a coffee room which exactly matched the one which had existed many years before? Seems unlikely, doesn't it? What do you think?
Hello, my name is Shelia Danson. I live at Longton, Preston, Lancashire. One day my daughter and I was going for a walk to Longton Brickcroft and we found something more than buried treasure. In January this year, my daughter Rachel and I were spending a relaxing day out. We come along to the local lake with some bread to feed the ducks and swans.
Suddenly one of the swans started to cough. He seemed to spit something out of his mouth. We wondered what it could be. We thought it might be a piece of grit or a stone. I reached down into the grass by the lake and picked up the tiny object that the swan had coughed up. It was a piece of bread, but there was something hard in the middle of it, something made of metal.
We couldn't believe it. We'd found a ring, and there in the centre of it was a stone, a beautiful stone. It was a diamond.
We were surprised because the ring was so shiny. We took it to the people who ran the nature reserve.
What a weird story. So how on earth would a diamond ring get into a swan's stomach? Maybe someone had lost it while they were swimming and the swan had snapped it up. Or could someone have dropped it overboard while they were rowing on the lake? What do you reckon? Well, when you hear from someone who works at the nature reserve about something that happened a few months earlier, things then start to become clearer.
Hello, my name is Susan Banister and I work at the Longton Brickcroft Nature Reserve. When Sheila and Rachel came into the visitor centre and handed in a diamond ring that they had found, I remembered that last November a lady came into the centre in quite a state. She said that she had been feeding the swans and had then noticed that she had lost her diamond engagement ring. So I couldn't believe it when 3 months later a swan spat out the ring and 2 people handed it in. But the thing we were puzzled about was how the ring had got inside the swan and why was it so shiny.
Well, we've done some research. The ring must have sunk to the bottom of the lake. Then when Sheila and Rachel were there for the day, the swan slipped its long neck under the water and foraged among the weeds, accidentally gulping down the ring. And why was the ring so shiny? Well, believe it or not, the answer to this riddle lies in the stomach of the swan. You see, the juices inside the swan's stomach are quite powerful, like a strong cleaner, and took off all the dirt that had built up on the ring over the months. Quite literally a case of spit and polish.
I'll never forget the day we found the engagement ring. It was amazing that something so bright and shiny could come from the grubby weeds within the lake. We are really glad that it's been returned to its rightful owner.
It's a mystery to me why I scratch an itch.
Well, if I scratch an itch, it always seems to make it worse.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but if you don't scratch it, it only drives you more mad, doesn't it?
Well, there are loads of reasons for getting an itch. I had some mates who put itching powder in my clothes, and I had a bath, I tried everything, and I could not get rid of this itch.
Oh, that's horrible. I hate scratching. I remember when I got the chicken pox and I itched like mad. It was awful.
Yeah, chicken pox is horrible, isn't it? So, okay, what exactly is an itch? Well, an itch is caused by the nerves in the top layer of the skin being upset. So how do you get rid of an itch if you're not allowed to scratch it?
Well, when I had chicken pox, my mum smothered me in this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Calamine lotion. It seemed to do the trick.
And I've heard there's a really filthy method of dealing with a troublesome itch. Licking or spitting on it.
I've got one there.
Okay, let me lick it. Let me lick it.
That's disgusting.
So hygienic.
I know, the reason that both licking on an itch and calamine lotion do in fact work is because they act as a sort of cooling system and they draw heat away from the skin, reducing the itch.
So what's your method, Neil?
Well, when I get bitten, I usually use this sort of stuff. It's a cool, soothing spray because you're not supposed to scratch things like bites. It can actually do more harm than good. You see, if you scratch something like a gnat bite, all you're doing is you're moving the poison around under the skin and you're spreading it to a bigger area, which in turn will make you itch more.
Exactly, I couldn't have put it better myself.
But the problem is, however hard you do try, when you have an itch, you just can't help but scratching because it does. It feels really, really nice.
Well, that might be because in some cases, scratching can actually work, but only temporarily. And the reason that scratching can stop an itch is that it disturbs the nerve endings which are causing the itch. This stops the itching sensation for just a little while. The problem is the itch returns with a vengeance, worse than before, because the scratching has made a bigger area itch, and sometimes this can even lead to an infection.
So whatever you do, don't scratch.
Oh, I can't help it.
Gail, stop scratching. Stop.
Well, that's some more of life's mysteries solved, yet many more remain unsolved. So join us next time when we investigate some more.
Here's one last mystery for you to try and solve. What 5-letter word becomes smaller when you add 2 letters to it?
Can you work out the answer?
We'll reveal all next time.
Last week's final mystery was: a girl hammered a nail into a tree to mark how tall she was. Now, if the tree grew 5 centimetres a year, how much higher would the nail be 20 years later? And the answer is, the nail would have stayed at exactly the same height, as trees grow from the top, not the bottom.